Hello and welcome back to Who Espresso, and today we have a lot to discuss, a lot to unpack. Very loaded episode 3 of Doctor Who Flux, and there is a lot to spoil, so if you have not yet seen Once Upon a Time, I would definitely recommend doing it promptly, because already I have seen very major spoilers on the internet, including one that I posed to myself, although it's more of a theory than a spoiler. But nevertheless, be wary, watch Once Upon a Time as quick as you can, basically. But yeah, so this is your spoiler warning. We are going to be talking in depth and discussing some theories I have about the rest of Flux. So yeah, let's get on with the video. Right off the bat, let's talk about there's sort of four plot threads throughout this thing, this episode. In the first one is the Doctor and the Division, which I think is the most interesting one personally. And it all links back, telling us all about, I think this ironically sets the context for Maury and the Temple of Atropos, which is really good because I think last episode was a bit confused as to what it all meant, so it's finally good to get some answers about it. So we learn in this episode that the past encounter with the Doctor and Swarm and Azure is an encounter where time was similarly starting to go wild. So they created the Temple of Atropos to sort of contain time, which I guess we kind of did know, but this is interesting because we get to see the Doctor and Jodie being used as a stand-in, as I kind of theorised. I can't remember if I theorised in the actual video, but I had theorised in my head, certainly, that this was going to be the case, that they were placeholder images for a storyline with the Division. So in this one, we obviously have 13th Doctor being a placeholder for the Ruth Doctor, who returns in this episode, and she's so great. I just love having Jo Martin back as the Doctor. I do think that having her obviously cut between Jo Martin and Jodie Whittaker, while I do think Jodie Whittaker has really improved this season, particularly last episode I thought was a standout performance for her, and this episode as well. Maybe it's because she's being essentially written as the Ruth Doctor, maybe it's that character, I don't know, but Jo Martin, she really always a bit one-upped the Jodie. So that is something that I am minor gripe, but mainly because of how fantastic of an actress Jo Martin is. So I mean, it's hardly a critique, it's just sort of like, you can really tell when the scene elevates. And maybe it's because Jodie's just out of place in that situation, because she's not that character. But there is something, I don't know if I would have gone with this placeholder narrative necessarily. I'd maybe have had it play out that we see from the offset that it's the Ruth Doctor, mainly because I just want more Jo Martin, to be honest. I mean, it's not a complaint, I guess, really, because it's just sort of a nice sort of glitch thing. I also like how glitches have been a theme throughout this episode. Obviously, throughout the marketing campaign as well, we've had this sort of glitch theme, and obviously here we're having the Doctor glitch between two different incarnations. But maybe I would have had it in reverse, so I would have had Jo Martin as being the central character, because the dialogue is written for her. I mean, that is the case, essentially. I don't know, I just would have... That's just what I would have done. Either way, I enjoyed it, and it was a very intriguing sort of setup for what was going on, but I just wish that maybe Jo Martin had more to do, because she felt more like a cameo appearance, which is what she was in The Timeless Children. So just essentially, it's just I wanted more. Maybe we will get more. I don't know, we'll see. It's a possibility. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, essentially. But yeah, that was great. I just loved how we got to see older Azure again. And I get every episode I get more of a Star Wars vibe. And I get that once again with older Azure, with this sort of big sort of furry coat, which is reminiscent. I can't remember which Star Wars villain. Certainly a kind of very early Jabba the Hutt type thing, wore a very furry coat. There's another Star Wars villain that I can't really remember. But also got some Star Trek vibes as well from this series as well. Particularly with this idea of the universe being drawn up into sectors, which gave me sort of very Klingon vibes, which of course is reminiscent of a Doctor Who story in its own right, Frontier in Space. But the idea that the Sontarans have one third, the Cybermen have another, and the Daleks have another. And by the way, when the Daleks just were hovering up and down like that, I was drinking coffee, and I literally spat it back into my mug, because I just wasn't expecting it. I was like, they're right out of the blue, it's just straight up Daleks after the post-credits. I was just not expecting it. It was crazy. my mind was blown. And speaking of which, Bells, I think it's Bells, is a very interesting character. Throughout the episode, I was trying to guess who maybe she was. I was getting sort of River Song vibes, I was getting Rose vibes, and then it realised what towards the end when she revealed, this is the major spoiler, that she was pregnant. And that's when I twigged that, I mean, it's probably a very obvious theory to make, that those qualities are also very doctorish, and that actually she reminded me of what the Doctor did to those characters, like what they were after meeting the Doctor and how the Doctor impacted Rose and River. And that's because I theorise that the child that she is carrying is the Doctor, and I will be madly impressed if it's right. It does seem very obvious. I mean, I also kind of predicted that the Tiber's child was going to be the Doctor, because it just felt like obvious. And it could be the same situation here. I mean, Chris Chibnall might pull a different sort of thing on me this time, but it wouldn't be too much. It's not too much of a... I've been theorising the whole, like, even since the trailer that the Doctor's parents show up in this series, it would make sense to show the Doctor's origin. And a story that's so rooted in the Doctor's origin that we would see the Doctor's parents. So my theory is that Vinder and Bells are the Doctor's parents, and that's why they're so important to this narrative and how Vinder is sort of drawn into this. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Either way, Bells was such a nice character. There's a scene she has with a Cyberman, which I thought was really nice, actually, where she's talking about love not being a sort of a mission. It's the ultimate mission or something in life. It was love. I thought that was a really touching scene. It reminded me of a scene from Age of Steel. I mean, it's kind of a very different scene, but also had reminiscent of a scene from Age of Steel with what's her name? Someone. It's when this woman has been upgraded and she's talking about her husband to being they were getting married and whatnot. It reminded me of that scene, because they talk about love, which is a very similar sort of thing to getting married. So it reminded me of that scene. I love how the Simon just stomped in and she just straight up gunned them down. I thought it was funny because I was comparing Vinder to Han Solo, and actually she gives me Han Solo vibes as well, rocking about in her spaceship. I wonder if they shared the spaceship, and maybe that this is... Because I recognise it looks similar to Carvanista's ship as well, which further adds to the theory that maybe she is the Doctor's parents, because obviously Carvanista works for the Division, so would it make sense that his ship would maybe be a hand-me-down from the Division sort of era, and then maybe they are also working for a sort of very similar empire, I guess. Speaking of Vinder, let's talk about Vinder in this episode. He also has a very interesting sort of plot line in this episode. We get a bit more context to him, because obviously throughout this episode he's been built up as this sort of big sort of side companion to this series. So it's interesting to see him come back and have actual context to his past. So in this one we learn that he's obviously working for this sort of, again, very Star Warsy vibe. It kind of reminds me of the Republic, and that sort of shady side to the Republic that we got in the prequels of Star Wars. And again, I've got that sort of Shadow Proclamation vibes with some of the buildings and stuff. But yeah, also we got this sort of ordeal at table, a sort of secret meeting, which gave me sort of Smuggler's Run vibes from, like, adding to that Han Solo sort of dodgy deal sort of experience that you wouldn't... I mean, it's interesting because he obviously does the right thing and then gets obviously put away for it, which makes me wonder who this Great Serpent is. I think the Great Serpent is in the sort of cast credits for episode 5, The Survivors of Flux, which interestingly got name checked by Bells, which makes me wonder if they're going to return to this plot line in episode 5, and this is what episode 5 is going to be about. I do wonder how connected episode 5 and 6 are going to be together. I mean, it's all going to be connected, but I wonder if they'll do a sort of finale type situation. In the sense that it's literally one after the other. But it's interesting that she mentions the Survivors of the Flux, because obviously that's what this sort of plotline refers to, is if this is the Flux, is this sort of relating to the child they're having? Is the Great Serpent behind the Flux? Is that what's necessarily going on? And who are these people he wants killed? Either way, the actor himself was quite fun throughout the episode as well. And I thought, well, he had that sort of stereotypical villain vibe, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, he was pretty good. wasn't that great. It wasn't that bad either. He's just there. And I thought it was interesting. I think Vinder stood out in these scenes, though, because he's, particularly with his scenes with his commanding officer where he's standing up for himself, I thought he gave a great performance there. So yeah, I'm really starting to like Jacob Anderson as Vinder, particularly if he does turn out to be the Doctor's father. And that would show both sides of the Doctor's personality as well, because obviously the Doctor stands up to the Time Lords as well, so it has that sort of link as well. So let's move on to Yaz, and she's had such a great episode. She's having a great run, honestly. There's some scenes towards the end as well where she's like, oh, what did you see? Why is it connected to you? And the Doctor's so bitchy to her. It's so funny. The way she just shut her down. I think it's just that the relationship at this point is just sort of constant shutting down of questions. So we'll see where it goes. I do still see Phasmin vibes, particularly from the scenes where she's like, oh, playing a game, and they're sort of in the police cars talking together. That was so sweet. I love that. So I still see some seeds, even if they don't always get along. I think it kind of shows that maybe she does care for her, but also like it shows that side that obviously the Doctor's very secretive and not willing to let things on. But we've seen throughout Jodie's era, she's been very secretive and lying to companions. I don't actually recall a scene where she explains the timeless child to Yaz yet, so I don't know, was it explained to her on screen? We'll have to wait and see. I don't think she knows anything. So it's interesting to see her dynamic and the Doctor sort of progress with this one. Obviously she gets the plotline with the Weeping Angel as well, which was really creepy actually. But then when it appeared in the video game, I thought that was quite... I think a lot of people were worried that maybe the Weeping Angels wouldn't be done as well without Stephen Moffat, but I think the new stuff that they've done with the Weeping Angels is quite creepy actually. I know like a lot of people didn't like when the Weeping Angels were added on to in like Time of the Angels, when they sort of had the television thing. But I did like that. I that was one of my reasons why it's my favourite Weeping Angel story, actually, that Matt Smith two-parter. So to get that added on here with the video game, obviously, because there is obviously a video game with Weeping Angels in at the moment, is extra sort of sinister as well, because you could be playing that game and suddenly the Weeping Angels could jump out at you like that. It's quite a scary thought, really. So I thought that was quite cleverly timed as well. And the stuff they do in the next time trailer, just so hyped for that one. And I'm curious to see how it impacts Yaz at the end as well, because obviously it's Yaz that's following. So has she got like an angel inside of her? Is it following Yaz, or is it trying to get to the Doctor maybe? So I think it's interesting what that Weeping Angel could be doing. I do think that Chris Chibnall was right that some of the stuff they've been doing with the Weeping Angels is really clever and unique. So it's nice to see them return. I can't wait for their sort of proper outing next week. It was also nice to see Yaz's sister Sonia return. She's a great presence throughout. I love her line about, oh, do you want me to be single all my life, when she just throws the game, I don't know what it's called, the game player thing on the floor, whatever it is. I don't know game consoles. She just smashes it and she's like, do you ever want me to have a boyfriend? I love that line so much. I love their relationship as sisters as well. I hope we get to see more of her before Yaz leaves or whatever. If she stays on, you never know. But yeah, so Yaz was great throughout. I loved it. So let's talk about Dan Lewis. He once again gets sidelined in this episode. I'm slightly worried for Dan because he's a great presence throughout this series, but he does feel like he's getting sidelined as a companion in some respects. Like his storyline here felt like it was the most minor one, and even last week he felt like his storyline was the least important of the story, and it kind of got brushed under the rug. So I do continue to think John Bishop is an incredible presence throughout in everything he does, much like Bradley Walsh was as Graham. I think probably slightly better than Bradley Walsh at this point, but I do kind of just wish that there would be more time with him, particularly when we haven't got that many episodes with him as a companion. I hate for him to sort of get not enough time. It's nice to see his relationship with Diane progressing, although I think they're starting to set up that maybe she's with someone else. So it'd be interesting to see, because obviously she suggests in episode 1, are we still on for Halloween drinks? So it makes me think that maybe there's something going on there, and maybe they're not in that happiest relationship, Diane and whoever she's partnered with. So maybe we'll see them come together. I certainly hope so, because the way he cared for her at the end, and I love the way that Dan loves and cares for Diane. I can clearly see that he does have an affection for her, even if it's not necessarily romantic. He does care for her. So I think they're just sweet, like when Dan brings her the coffee and everything, they go talk about her date last night. If nothing else, they seem like really good friends, like, honestly, they're just so nice together each other. So yeah, they were great. I hope Diana's safe. She seems so nice, honestly. So we'll have to see how that progresses. I do wonder if that might be the hostage situation that sets up the finale. That's where they're heading towards, maybe, the climactic final showdown in the finale 2 episodes. So yeah, he was good. I just wish we had more of him, essentially. So, last thing I want to talk about before we get into my overall thoughts of this episode is this sort of thing towards the end with the Maury and throwing the Doctor back to the last memory. I think it's presumed that it's the last memory that she has erased. And obviously she's with this sort of batty old lady, and she's got this hat on the back of her, sort of, you know, she's wearing a hat, which gives me Romana vibes, firstly, because of the straw bow hat that she wears in that one. I don't think it is Romana, because she's also wearing all white. And I know it's crazy and everyone throws it out every year, but what if she's the White Guardian? I think, particularly the way she's sort of tending to all these sort of plants and stuff, it did give me that vibe. And it just kind of feel like she could be the White Guardian. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but, like, it does imply that it's on Gallifrey, I guess, and that it's just sort of mentoring here. I also got the sort of, what's her name? Someone from the Sisterhood of Khan. She gave me that kind of vibes. So, I mean, maybe she is the Doctor's mother as well. I might throw that in. She could be anything, but I think it's a possibility. I mean, you could even throw Omega in it. I mean, you could throw in anyone, and the theory could make sense. But it's an interesting little scene. And the Maury are also quite intriguing. I wonder if we'll see them pop up again. They were an interesting concept as beings that could control time itself, but also are kind of trapped forever in that sort of universe. And it reminded me of the Dormammu come to bargain scenes from Doctor Strange as well. So yeah, that was fun. It was an interesting little scene, and I'm curious to see what effects it has on the rest of the series. So yeah, overall thoughts on Doctor Who Flux, Chapter 3, Once Upon a Time. And I mean, I know a lot of people might give this episode sort of flack for being a lot crammed into not as much time, but actually it provides for a very quick pace which keeps your attention throughout, actually constantly glued to the screen for me, and constantly trying to work out what it all means and theorizing. And it's episodes, unlike last week's episode, which I thought was a better episode, like structure wise, I think particularly in a kind of narrative that this story is trying to tell, this episode is very good. I think it's actually a really strong episode with so many interesting plots and twists and developments that keeps you theorizing and keeps you guessing. I mean, in this review I've basically been constantly raving about what could happen next, and that's what a good episode does. And I think it's something I didn't appreciate properly when Fugitive of the Jadoon first came out. I was like, oh, it's sort of very, like, it depends on what happens next, and it is what happens next that makes these kind of episodes. But at the same time, it's that hype and enjoyment that I get when I'm watching it for the first time, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. And that's what makes a good episode in the context of a series like this. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Maybe 9.5 because I want more Joe Martin, but really a 10 out of 10 because I did just drop dead gorgeous. It was fantastic, fabulous episode, and I absolutely adored it from start to finish. And when this video is uploaded, I'm probably going to be watching it again. So yeah, thanks for watching. Tell me your thoughts on Once Upon a Time and your theories. Do you think the Doctor is the child of Vinder and Bell? Tell me in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you like this video, or don't, I don't know. Subscribe for updates on upcoming content and reviews. And also there are 2 videos out for Galaxy 4 at the moment, so if you have not yet, if you want to go watch them, we've got an unboxing for the Steelbook, which I managed to pick up Forbidden Planet, and a sort of review of the actual story. So you can go check them out if you want. They're on my channel as well. I might leave a link in the description. So yeah, thanks for watching, and goodbye.